My name is Rachel Whitman. I'm 31 years old. At my older brother's wedding, my own family shoved me into the kitchen like I was hired help. They whispered that I'd embarrass them if any of their important guests saw me. They handed me an apron and told me to make myself useful. For hours, I served drinks and cleared plates while my brother, the golden child, toasted to his perfect new life. But later that night, when they were all drunk on champagne and self-importance, I walked to the head table, pulled out a $5 million contract my company had just signed, and the entire room froze. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, and drop a comment to let me know where you are watching from. Growing up in our Houston home was like living in a split-screen movie. On one side, there was Daniel. On the other, there was me. Daniel's side was always bright, loud, and full of color. He was the star. He had my parents' undivided attention from the moment he was born. He was 2 years older, and in our family, that might as well have been a lifetime. He was the heir, the one who would carry the Whitman name with pride. I was the afterthought, the quiet, bookish girl who just happened to share the same last name. I remember when Daniel got his report card in 10th grade. He had 3 B's and 2 C's. My father, Edward, clapped him on the back so hard he nearly fell over. "That's my boy," he boomed. "A man of action, not some stuffy nerd. Let's go get you that car you wanted." That weekend, a slightly used but still gleaming Mustang was parked in our driveway with a big red bow on it. 2 weeks later, my report card came. I had straight A's. I had won the regional science fair. I had published a short story in a teen literary journal. I slid the report card onto the dinner table while my mother, Claire, was serving pot roast. She glanced at it, her eyes scanning the letters without really seeing them. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she said, placing a scoop of mashed potatoes on my plate. "Keep up the good work." My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. "Don't get a big head, Rachel. Smart girls can be intimidating. No one likes to show off." That was the theme of my childhood. Daniel's mediocrity was celebrated as proof of his charisma and charm. My achievements were treated as quiet, slightly inconvenient facts, like a piece of furniture that was useful but didn't quite match the decor. They didn't know what to do with me. I didn't play sports. I didn't go to loud parties. I read books. I tinkered with old computers my dad brought home from his office, and I dreamed of a world outside our suffocating suburban bubble. The financial support was just as lopsided. My parents funneled a small fortune into Daniel's life. His law degree from a private university, his first apartment with brand new furniture, his tailored suits, his weekend trips with friends, it was all funded by the bank of mom and dad. They called it an investment in his future. My future, however, was expected to be self-funded. When I got into college, a good state school with a scholarship, I still had a massive gap to fill for tuition and living expenses. I asked my parents for help once. I sat them down in the living room, my financial aid form spread out on the coffee table. My father looked at the numbers, his brow furrowed. "Rachel, we've put a lot into Daniel's education. Law school isn't cheap. We just don't have this kind of money lying around." Beside him, my mother nodded, a sympathetic but firm look on her face. "You've always been so resourceful, honey. We know you'll figure it out. It builds character." Character. That's what they called it. So, I built character. I got a job waitressing at a diner downtown. I worked double shifts on weekends, and every weeknight I didn't have a late class. I came home smelling of grease and burnt coffee, my feet aching so badly I'd have to soak them in hot water before I could even think about studying. I'd be up until 2 a.m. writing papers, fueled by cheap instant noodles and the quiet, burning anger in my chest. Sometimes, Daniel would call me from his pristine apartment, complaining. "This corporate law stuff is such a drag," he'd whine. "My boss is a total jerk, and I had to pay for my own drinks last night because I forgot my wallet. Can you believe it?" I'd listen, my own bills piled up on my tiny desk, and I'd say, "That sounds tough, Dan." I never told him I was surviving on tips and that my dinner was often the leftover breadsticks the diner let me take home. What was the point? It wouldn't have registered. In his world, a minor inconvenience was a crisis. In my world, a crisis was just another Tuesday. Despite it all, I didn't just survive, I thrived. The constant struggle made me tough. It made me smart. I learned how to manage money down to the last penny. I learned how to deal with difficult people. I earned my degree, then went on to get my MBA at night while working a boring but steady office job during the day. And all the while, I was building something on the side. In my tiny apartment, surrounded by secondhand furniture, I started my own company. It was a small tech consulting firm. I saw a gap in the market, small businesses that needed sophisticated IT solutions but couldn't afford the massive firms. I started with one client, a local bakery that needed a better online ordering system. I built it for them on a shoestring budget. They loved it. They told their friends. Slowly, painfully, my business grew. I worked relentlessly. Every dollar I made went back into the company. There were years of ramen noodles and sleepless nights, years of my family asking condescendingly, "Are you still tinkering with that little computer hobby of yours?" They never took it seriously. To them, Daniel was the success story. He worked at a prestigious law firm, drove a company car, and had a beautiful fiancée named Sophia, who came from old money. I was just Rachel, the odd one, the one who would never amount to much. They had no idea I was building an empire while they were busy polishing Daniel's throne. They never asked, so I never told them. The wedding announcement was a grand affair. Daniel and Sophia, his fiancée, gathered the family for a lavish dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town. My parents beamed as if they had personally orchestrated the union. Sophia was perfect for Daniel. Her family was wealthy, well-connected, and just as obsessed with appearances as my own. She was blonde, polished, and had a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. The wedding planning began immediately, and it was clear from the start that I was not part of the production. My mother and Sophia formed an impenetrable team, spending their days visiting venues, tasting cakes, and choosing flowers. My sister-in-law-to-be would post photos on social media, "Best day with my future MIL," with pictures of them laughing over swatches of silk and lace. I was never invited. I was never consulted. I was an outsider, a ghost in my own family celebration. One afternoon, I tried to bridge the gap. I called my mother, my stomach twisting with nerves. "Hi, Mom," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "I saw the pictures of the venue you guys picked. It looks beautiful." "It is," she said, her voice distant. "Sophia has exquisite taste." "Well, I was just calling to see if you needed any help. With addressing invitations or making favors or anything at all. I have some free time next weekend." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint sound of a television in the background. "Oh, Rachel, that's sweet of you, but we have it all under control. Sophia's family hired a wedding planner. Everything is being handled by professionals." The implication was clear. I was not a professional. I was an amateur, and my help was not wanted. The humiliation stung, a familiar, dull ache. "Okay, well, what about the rehearsal dinner? Is there anything I can do to help set up?" This time her response was sharper, laced with an irritation she didn't bother to hide. "Rachel, please, just stay out of the way. Daniel and Sophia are under a lot of stress. There are a lot of important people coming to this wedding. We don't want you ruining things. Ruining things. The words hung in the air between us. That's what I was to them. A potential disaster. A loose cannon who might show up in the wrong dress or say the wrong thing. A blemish on their perfect family portrait. I wouldn't ruin anything, I whispered, but she was already moving on. I have to go, dear. The caterer is on the other line. Just make sure you have your dress ready and try to look presentable. She hung up. I stood in my office, the phone still pressed to my ear, and stared at the wall. On it was a whiteboard covered in complex algorithms and project timelines for a dozen different clients. My company was on the verge of landing its biggest contract ever, a deal that would change everything. But in that moment, all I felt was the sting of my mother's words. I was tempted not to go. I could claim I was sick or that I had a work emergency, which wouldn't even be a lie. But some stubborn part of me refused to let them erase me completely. This was my brother's wedding. I would be there. I would hold my head high, smile politely, and endure it. I would attend quietly, a silent spectator to my own family's joy. That was my plan. I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. The day of the wedding arrived, a bright, sunny Texas afternoon that felt like a cruel joke. I spent longer than usual getting ready, choosing a simple but elegant navy blue dress. I did my hair, put on makeup, and stared at my reflection, trying to see the person my mother was so afraid of, the one who could ruin things just by showing up. I didn't see her. I just saw a woman who was tired of trying to earn her family's love. I arrived at the sprawling, expensive country club early, clutching a small, tastefully wrapped gift. I had a faint, foolish hope that maybe, just for today, things would be different. Maybe seeing me there, looking polished and presentable, would make them realize I wasn't the family disgrace. I walked into the grand foyer, and the first person I saw was my mother. She was dressed in a shimmering silver gown, a corsage pinned to her shoulder. When she saw me, her polite socialite smile tightened into a thin, hard line. She moved towards me quickly, intercepting me before I could go any further into the reception hall. "Rachel," she said, her voice a low, urgent whisper. "You're here." "Of course I'm here, Mom. It's Daniel's wedding." She glanced over her shoulder, towards the main hall, where guests were starting to mingle. "Listen," she said, pulling me to a side hallway, away from prying eyes. "There's been a slight change of plans with the seating arrangement. It's very crowded. Sophia's family has so many important connections, and we had to make room." I knew what was coming. The familiar cold dread washed over me. "So there's no seat for me at the family table." Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She fussed with the sleeve of her dress. "It's not just that. All the tables are full. There are just too many guests. Important guests." The words hung there, unspoken but screamingly loud. "And you are not one of them." I stood there, speechless. I had expected to be seated at a distant table with estranged cousins, not to be erased from the seating chart entirely. My mother saw the shock on my face and seemed to take it as a cue to deliver the final blow. She forced a bright, brittle smile. "But I had an idea. You've always been such a good helper. Why don't you make yourself useful? The staff in the back is a little overwhelmed. You could help out in the kitchen." I stared at her, certain I had misheard. "The kitchen?" "Yes, just for a little while to help things run smoothly. It would be a huge help to me and your father." Before I could protest, she signaled to a passing catering manager. "This is my daughter, Rachel. She's offered to lend a hand in the back." The manager, a harried-looking woman, just nodded and handed me an apron. a stiff, white, industrial-grade apron. My mother patted my arm. "There, now you're a part of the team." She turned and walked away, gliding back into the party as if she had just solved a minor logistical problem. She didn't look back. I stood in the hallway, the starched apron in my hands. Through the archway, I could see my cousins and family friends arriving. Some of them saw me. They saw my nice dress, my styled hair, and the cheap white apron in my hands. I saw the smirks form on their faces, the quick, whispered comments they exchanged behind their hands. "Well, look at that," I heard my Aunt Carol whisper to her husband. "Guess Rachel finally found her place." The catering manager cleared her throat. "Are you coming?" Numbly, I followed her. She led me through a set of swinging doors into the hot, chaotic world of the kitchen. The air was thick with the smell of roasting meat and the sound of clattering dishes and shouted orders. She pointed to a stack of trays loaded with champagne flutes. "Start with these," she said, and then she was gone, swallowed by the chaos. And just like that, I was no longer a guest at my brother's wedding. I was the help. The next few hours were a blur of humiliation. I balanced trays of champagne glasses, my hands shaking slightly. I carried out platters of hors d'oeuvres, my face a carefully constructed mask of neutrality. I moved through the crowd of my own family, my own relatives, and they looked straight through me. Or worse, they looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. I navigated the clusters of laughing, champagne-sipping guests, offering them mini quiches and bacon-wrapped scallops. A few people did a double take. "Rachel, is that you?" my Uncle Robert asked, his eyes wide with surprise. Before I could answer, his wife tugged on his sleeve. "Don't be silly, dear," she hissed, loud enough for me to hear. "She's just one of the wait staff." The worst was overhearing the gossip. As I refilled water glasses at a table near the back, I heard a group of my cousins talking. "What is Rachel even doing with her life?" one of them, Jessica, asked. "I heard she's jobless, lives in some tiny apartment downtown." I heard Mom said she tried to start some kind of business, but it failed. "It's so sad. Daniel got all the ambition in the family." They spoke about me, as if I were a tragic character in a story, a cautionary tale. They had no idea I was standing right behind them. My heart felt like it was cracking, splintering with each whispered lie. The weight of the tray in my hands felt immense. Every glass, every plate was a testament to my failure in their eyes. This was rock bottom, standing in a room full of people who were supposed to love me, being treated like an invisible servant. The shame was a physical thing, a hot, suffocating blanket. I wanted to drop the tray, to let the glasses shatter on the polished floor. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run out of that building and never look back. I retreated to the kitchen, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I leaned against a cold, stainless steel counter and hidden from view. I could feel the tears welling up, hot and threatening. I thought about my car in the parking lot. I could just leave. I could disappear, and they probably wouldn't even notice I was gone until it was time to clean up. But then, as I stood there, amidst the steam and the noise, something else rose up inside me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something colder, harder. It was resolve. I thought about the bag I had left in the coat check room. Inside that bag, nestled between my wallet and my keys, was a simple manila folder. And inside that folder was a contract. It was the culmination of 5 years of relentless work, of sleepless nights and sacrificed weekends. It was a partnership agreement with the Fortune 500 tech giants, a $5 million deal that my little consulting firm had just secured, a deal that would not only change my life, but would also make waves in the industry. I had brought it with me for a simple, hopeful reason. I had imagined, in a moment of foolish optimism, that there might be a quiet moment during the reception where I could tell my father the good news, that maybe, for just a second, he would look at me with the same pride he always reserved for Daniel. That hope was gone now, incinerated by the day's cruelty. But the folder was still there. The contract was still real. A new plan began to form in my mind. I wouldn't leave. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. They wanted me to be the help. Fine. I would be the best damn help they ever seen. I would serve their drinks and clear their plates with a polite professional smile. I would wait. I would watch. And when the moment was right, I wouldn't shout or make a scene. I would let the truth speak for itself, quietly and devastatingly. I took a deep breath, pushing the tears back down. I straightened the ridiculous apron. I walked out of the kitchen, my spine straight and my head held high. My shift wasn't over yet. The performance had just begun. I moved with a newfound grace, a detached calm that unsettled the people who had been smirking at me just an hour before. I refilled wine glasses, my smile never wavering. I cleared plates with quiet efficiency. I was no longer a victim cowering in the kitchen. I was an anthropologist, observing a strange and cruel tribe in their native habitat. I saw it all. My father, Edward, holding court, laughing loudly at the jokes of Sophia's father. My mother, Claire, fluttering from table to table, her smile as brittle as spun sugar. And my brother, Daniel, standing at the center of it all, soaking in the adoration like a king. He looked happy, but it was a shallow, smug kind of happiness. He caught my eye once as I was clearing a nearby table. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture that said, "Thanks for not making a fuss." He didn't see a sister being humiliated. He saw a problem being quietly managed. The dinner service ended. The music swelled. The toasts began. One after another, friends and family stood up to praise Daniel and Sophia. They talked about Daniel's brilliant legal mind, his ambition, his success. My father stood up, his chest puffed out with pride. As the father of the groom, he began, his voice booming across the room. "I couldn't be prouder of the man my son has become. He is a success in every sense of the word. He embodies the Whitman legacy of hard work and achievement." He then went on to toast Sophia's family, talking about their impressive business empire and the powerful new alliance between their two families. "This union isn't just about love," he declared, raising his glass. "It's about building a future, about new partnerships, new ventures. The future has never looked brighter." That was it. That was my cue. As the applause echoed through the hall, I made my move. I walked from the shadows at the edge of the room, my footsteps silent on the thick carpet. I moved past the tables of stunned relatives, their conversations faltering as they watched me approach the head table. I reached my mother and father. I didn't say a word. I simply untied the strings of the white apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on an empty chair. Then I reached into the handbag I'd retrieved from the coat check and pulled out the manila folder. I placed it on the table with the soft but distinct thud, right next to my father's champagne glass. He looked at the folder, then at me, his expression a mixture of confusion and annoyance. "Rachel, what is this? What are you doing?" Before I could answer, a man at a nearby table stood up. He was tall, impeccably dressed, with an air of authority that commanded attention. I knew who he was. He was Mr. Harrison, the CEO of the company we had just partnered with. I hadn't realized he was a guest of Sophia's family. His face broke into a wide, genuine smile when he saw me. "Rachel," he said, his voice carrying easily through the now silent room. He walked over and extended his hand. "Congratulations again on closing the deal. That presentation you gave last week was brilliant. Your company is, without a doubt, the best and most innovative we have ever worked with." He shook my hand warmly. I just smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. It's a pleasure to be working with you." The silence in the room was absolute. It was a thick, heavy, suffocating silence. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear the blood draining from my family's faces. My father stared at Mr. Harrison, then at the folder on the table, then at me. His mouth was hanging slightly open. My mother looked like she had seen a ghost. Daniel and Sophia were frozen, their perfect smiles plastered on their faces like masks. Mr. Harrison, oblivious to the family drama he had just walked into, gestured to the folder. "Is that the final contract?" "Excellent. My team is ready to get started on Monday." $5 million is a big investment, but after seeing your work, I have no doubt it'll be worth every penny. $5 million. The words echoed in the silence. The whisper started almost immediately, a ripple spreading through the room. Did he say 5 million? Her company? Who is she? She's the one behind that deal? The cousins who had been gossiping about me being jobless were staring, their jaws slack. Aunt Carol, who had sneered that I'd found my place, was gawking openly. Sophia's wealthy parents looked from me to my parents with expressions of utter bewilderment. Their perfect alliance was suddenly with the family that hid their most successful member in the kitchen. My father finally found his voice. It was a weak, fumbling stammer. We didn't know, Rachel. You never said." My mother just shook her head, muttering, "I had no idea." I looked at them, not with anger, not with triumph, but with a calm, clear finality. I smiled politely, the same smile I had been using all night while serving them canapes. "Of course you didn't," I said, my voice quiet but heard by everyone at the head table. "You never asked." I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to cry or list my grievances. The truth was laid bare on the table between us, more powerful than any angry words could ever be. Their carefully constructed world, built on appearances and hierarchies, had just been shattered by a single manila folder. The golden child was not the success story after all. The family reject, the one they had hidden away in shame, was. I didn't stay for the fallout. There was no reason to. My work was done. I gave Mr. Harrison a final, polite nod. "I'll be in touch on Monday." Then I turned to my family. "Congratulations, Daniel," I said, my voice even. "I wish you all the best." I collected my handbag, leaving the apron on the chair and the folder on the table. I walked out of that reception hall, and this time no one smirked, no one whispered. They just stared, their faces a gallery of shock and disbelief. I didn't run. I walked with a steady, unhurried pace, leaving them behind in the ruins of their own party. The drive home was silent. I didn't turn on the radio. I just listened to the sound of tires on the pavement. I didn't feel euphoric. I didn't feel vengeful. I just felt quiet. The heavy weight I had been carrying for my entire life, the weight of not being enough, of constantly seeking their approval, was gone. The calls started the next day. First, my mother. Her voice was frantic, full of a false, gushing pride I had never heard before. "Rachel, darling, my father and I are we're speechless. A $5 million contract. Why on earth didn't you tell us? We are so proud of you." I let her talk, listening to the desperate attempt to rewrite history, to pretend they had been my biggest supporters all along. Then came the calls from Daniel. He was confused, angry. "What was that, Rachel? You embarrassed me in front of my new wife and her family. You made a scene." Even now, he saw my moment of truth as an inconvenience to him. For weeks, my phone buzzed endlessly with calls and texts. They were suddenly desperate to have me back in the fold. Invitations for dinner, suggestions for a family brunch. "We need to celebrate your incredible success," my mother texted. I ignored them all. Finally, after a month of silence on my end, my mother called one last time, her voice cracking with emotion. "I don't understand, Rachel. We're family. We're so proud of you now. Why are you pushing us away?" I answered that one. I took a deep breath and said the words that had been sitting in my heart for years. "You didn't want me at the table then, so you don't get a seat at mine now." I hung up the phone and blocked her number. I blocked all their numbers. It wasn't about revenge. It was about peace. In the quiet that followed, I came to a realization. Forgiveness isn't about letting people back into your life to hurt you again. It's about letting go of the anger for your own sake. I forgave my parents and my brother, not for them, but for me. I forgave their ignorance, their cruelty, their profound and damaging neglect. I let it all go. But forgiveness and access are two different things. Their access to my life was gone forever. They had made their choice at that wedding, and I made mine. My company is thriving now. I have a team of brilliant people who respect me for my mind and my work, not because of my last name. I'm building a life that is full and happy, a life that is entirely my own. I don't need a seat at their table anymore. I'm too busy building my own. So, I have to ask, have you ever been humiliated by family only to later watch them choke on their own arrogance? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more stories of betrayal, survival, and quiet revenge.